You probably haven't ridden your mountain bike on the southwest flank of Mount Saint Helens, and you really should. There's this really neat lollipop you can ride on the southwest side of the mountain that incorporates the Toutle Trail and Sheep Canyon. We call it the Toutle Pop. First things first, I wouldn't have discovered this trail had I not showed up to Shift, the annual event Northwest Trail Alliance puts on to maintain trail at Mount Saint Helens. If it weren't for Jim Lamons trying to get more people to ride this part of the mountain and dragging us up here to work on the trail, I would never have thought to ride this. I'll leave GPS coordinates for the trailhead I used in the description of this video, because this approach, which does cut out quite a bit of climbing, doesn't show up on trail forks, but there is a perfectly serviceable road right up to this trailhead. But the way I did this ride was to navigate to the Blue Lake trailhead. There is another longer option that's listed as Toutle Pop in Trail Forks that adds in the section of the Toutle Trail that starts at Red Rock Pass. That adds a few miles and an extra 1,000 feet of climbing to the ride, but it too is a worthy addition if you're looking for a 3,700-foot day. This ride will net you about 2,700 feet of climbing over 12 miles, which isn't bad. The trail begins by traversing over a mile of relatively flat, rocky pumice and other various volcanic debris that will probably force you to get off the bike more than a few times, even if you're a really strong rider, until it reaches this little bridge over Gold Spring Creek. After this crossing, you'll be in the forest for most of the rest of this ride. There are a lot of these little route step-ups in the first couple miles of this trail, which will only present a challenge if you're carrying a lot of weight on your back. For instance, if you were maybe carrying a gas-powered trimmer with you or something like that. Otherwise, you should be fine hopping up most of these if you're an intermediate to advanced level rider. The initial climb will gain about 1,000 feet over around 2.5 miles. It's a pretty moderate climb by Cascadia standards. When you get to this junction with this horse trail and a nice pretty little meadow, keep going forward. After a little less than another mile of climbing, you'll get to the first little section of downhill, where over a series of switchbacks and side cuts through recovering forest, the trail loses 300 feet of elevation over a couple of miles. It's a nice little respite from what you've just been going through. Look lively and keep your head up, because when you get to this intersection near the bottom of the descent, you need to take the fork to your right. There's a fun way and a funner way to ride this lollipop. The funner way is to the right. I was told that this climb is horrible, but it's not nearly as horrible as I was expecting. It's not a picnic exactly. With an average slope of about 12%, it gains just under 1,000 feet in about 1.5 miles. It's not trivial, but it's not deadly either. There were a few sections where I did have to walk the bike, but overall it wasn't so bad. Exposures and vistas do open up as you proceed up this climb, which is nice. We like nice things. This trail is on the side of the mountain opposite the 1980 blast, so most of this forest that was on the rims of the canyons survived intact, making for a diverse and interesting landscape. Actually, the forest itself is really interesting through here. It's a nice place to be climbing on a mountain bike. Actually, I dare say it's nicer than Ape Canyon. When you get to this intersection at the top of the big climb, do not go to the right, not unless you want to sign yourself up for quite a few more miles than you were bargaining for. Go left. Left is the direction you want to go, where those two nice people are picking huckleberries. From here, there will be a fun, quick little downhill section where the trail loses about 50 feet over 1,700 feet of distance before you get to this big open canyon with kind of a tricky traverse, but an awesome open view. There will be some portaging of the bike. It would not be a Mount Saint Helens ride without some portaging over sketchy pyroclastic debris fields and volcanic mudslide debris. The whole traverse ends with this hike-a-bike back out of the canyon and into the woods again. Don't forget to turn around before you get back into the woods and just appreciate what you've crossed. This is classic Cascadia epicness here, right on the flanks of a volcano. Once back in the woods, the trail cuts through probably the thickest meadow of bear grass on the ride. This is the last push to the summit of the ride, which tops out at 4,700 feet. The trail gains 250 feet of elevation in just under half a mile as it pushes through stunted subalpine forest. Yes, the subalpine zone in the Pacific Northwest starts around 4,000 feet, and it shows in this section. The forest teases you with little suggestions of exposures as you pedal along, until you get to this exposure. This is the high point and the best view on the ride. Look around and enjoy. You can see the Toutle River Valley and the road that leads up to the Johnston Ridge Observatory, which is the main destination for most Mount Saint Helens tourists. We encountered a few hikers who were backpacking their way around the mountain as well. This is the correct place to stop for lunch and enjoy all the huckleberries and mountain blueberries you picked on the way up. The next section of downhill is the reason I told you to ride the top of the lollipop counterclockwise. The trail will lose 1,600 feet over 2 miles with some of the best views down into the canyon of the entire ride. This downhill has everything you could reasonably expect from a natural downhill on the side of a volcano. The grade is perfect. There are no bike-specific features and it runs raw and natural. This is old school hiking trail with some kick-ass views thrown in just for good measure. If you're trying to break Strava records on this descent, then you're doing it wrong. The trail pokes in and out of sections of forest that got knocked over by the 1980 blast, so you'll get treated to a lot of nice views, followed by patches of woods until the last drop into the woods, and I'm just gonna play some music here and show off these woods. By and by, the trail arrives at this kind of sketchy canyon rim. Just be aware of this and don't fly off the edge. It could be pretty tricky and time-consuming to extract yourself from this. This descent through the woods is just magical. I wish the GoPro could let you feel how nice the dirt is in here and the way your wheels just hook up, plus the natural rawness of this. It's not the most techie section of trail, it's just plain old undiluted good fun, the kind that isn't idealized for bikes. It's the kind of fun you can only have on a dirt path through a hemlock forest on the side of a volcano. It's such a rare treat to get to experience something like this, especially on 2 wheels. The descending excellence ends here at this log jam kind of creek crossing thing. This is a great spot to talk about just how awesomely magically epic the last 2 miles of trail was and how it totally made all the climbing you did to get here like completely worthwhile. Pull out some shop blocks or a Cliff Bar. This is a great place for another snack. From here, the trail climbs up a side cut with about 3 switchbacks gaining around 600 feet in just under a mile. The forest is more of this fantastic old growth hemlock stuff that seems to be all over the place on this side of Mount Saint Helens. This really is a fairly nice trail surface through here as well. It's not a particularly challenging climb, although it does feel taxing after the climbing you've already done. But really, you're only 1,700 feet into a 2,700 foot ride at the bottom of this climb, so it's really not so bad. It's pretty. You should enjoy it. At the end of this part of the climb, the trail drops a little elevation briefly as it arrives at this bridge over Sheep Canyon. This is very close to the intersection at the top of the Lollipop Stick, so if you really wanted to and you were that big of a drunk, you could have stashed a 6-pack of beer in the creek here to retrieve now, and it would be cold, and you could drink it on the way out, or LaCroix, or anything else, any other beverage. That would have also been acceptable as well. After this, you're going to climb another 400 feet over a half mile, going back the way you came, and reaching the summit of the Lollipop Stick. From here, you'll reach the second most fun section of downhill on this ride, which should be familiar to you because you came in this way. This section was mediocre on the way up, but it's a total blast on the way down. This is just such a good old classic intermediate skill level super fun descent. All those big step ups that had to be navigated on the way up are super fun low consequence step downs you can launch off of on the way down. The forest is still just as lovely as it was on the way up too. This descent isn't technical, it's fun and pretty and joyful. There aren't a lot of tight turns on it, and the tread is wide with great sight lines, so you can really just cut loose and shred it. try not to get lost in the mud flow on your way back out of here. It's surprisingly easy to lose your bearings in here, but you'll figure it out. When you get to this intersection, you can take a right and the trail will guide you back to the car. It's fantastic, a true joy. I hope you're glad you found this side of the mountain. Now, please help me out by giving this video a thumbs up if you liked, or a thumbs down if you didn't. Also, subscribe, of course, and leave comments too. The more you interact with my videos, the easier it makes it for other mountain bikers to find them. Now, get out there and go ride your bike.